Alrighty, welcome everybody. Welcome to the 8th episode of Brownsville Tech Live for 2026. And in the house, it is my pleasure to have Miss Erin H. Garcia, who is a candidate for the 107th District Court for Cameron County. Erin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Daniel. Thanks for having me.
It is definitely great to have you. For everybody out there, we're broadcasting tonight live across Facebook, YouTube, X, and Rumble, and a recorded session will be available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio tomorrow. So the chat lines are also open out to the public. They're open for Facebook, for YouTube, for X, and for Rumble. So if you want to chime in, you can do so. If some of you ask questions and I don't get to them, don't be upset. Sometimes I get really excited about doing these interviews. So Erin, just wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of introduce yourself out to the viewers and the potential voters out there. Can you give us a little bit of information, who you are, for those that don't know you, where you're from, where you were born, what schools you went to, what do you do for a professional life, and if you could do that, that would be good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I am definitely a Brownsville girl. Again, for those that I've never met, my full name's Erin Hernandez Garcia. I was born and raised here in Brownsville. I was born May 23rd, 1980, a very proud Gen X person. I think we lived in a wonderful era, so
That's
I
right.
threw that out there. But I was born and raised here in Brownsville. I attended Brownsville Public Schools. I attended Egley Elementary, Oliveda Middle School, and Hanna High School. I graduated in 1998 from Homer Hanna High School, so I'm definitely a very proud Eagle. Once I graduated from Hanna, I started my undergraduate studies here at what was UTB, TSC at the time, before the big university breakup. And I always really talk about that because I'm very proud that I was able to go to school here in Brownsville and finish my undergraduate studies at such an incredible university. I loved attending the university here. I loved that I was able to stay at home and work on my undergraduate degree right here in Brownsville. I graduated in 2002 with a degree in business administration with a specialization in management studies. And then it was really during my undergraduate degree and the courses that I was taking where I met a wonderful professor by the name of Dr. Zavaleta. And that was my business law professor. And it was in the course of talking to him and talking to him about business law that he really piqued my interest in possibly going to law school. So in, as the course went on, and the more I talked to Dr. Zavaleta about it, and then came and talked to my family about it, talked to different relatives who are attorneys, it was something I said, you know what, I'm going to just take a shot at it. I'm going to see if I apply to law school, and if I get in, we'll see what happens, right? We didn't know at the time if I would even get in. But so I had a lot of family support. I had the support of Dr. Zavaleta. He wrote me a recommendation letter and said, I will do whatever I can to help you. And so I did. I applied, and I was accepted into Thurgood Marshall School of Law. I was very excited about that. I was able to finish. I was able to start. I graduated in 2002 from UTB-TSC, and I was able to start law school in 2003. So I attended Thurgood Marshall from 2003 to 2006. That is the only time that I have lived away from Cameron County, when I had to move away to law school. And it was a great opportunity and a great experience. A little overwhelming initially, living away from home for the first time, being away from your family and your brothers and my now husband. It was a little overwhelming at the time, but in reflection, it was an amazing experience. I made a lot of amazing friends who I am still in close contact with today, 20 years after graduation. You really form some formidable relationships and friendships in law school. So I graduated from law school in 2006, and I took the bar exam that very year. It was interesting because I was pregnant with my oldest daughter. So I
Oh,
was
wow.
6 months pregnant. I sat for the Texas bar exam. I always tell people her and I sat for the bar exam together, because she was, not only was she with me in spirit, she was definitely with me. But that little girl was definitely my strength. And we got through the bar exam. And I was very fortunate that I did pass the bar exam the first time that I took it. So by November of 2006, I was licensed to practice here in Texas. As soon as I took the bar exam in July, the very next day, I packed my bags and came home. So I was living back in Brownsville. I was very eager to get back home. Home is where the heart is. And that for me is
Right.
Brownsville. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
And but I started working immediately. I was actually offered a position at a real estate law firm just as soon as I graduated from law school, even pending bar results. I met a phenomenal lady. Her name was Ramona Cantac. She was out in Port Isabel. She offered me a job, and I got to work right away. And so I've been working as an attorney since 2006. And so that speaks a little bit to my educational and where I went to school. As my family, my husband Doro and I have been married 21 years. This year will be year 22 in July. We have three amazing children. My daughter Andrea is 19 years old. She's the one that took that bar exam with me. She is now a freshman here at UTRGV, and she's absolutely loving it. My son Darren is 16. He'll be 17 next month. He's a junior at IDEA Brownsville. And we have a little boy. Our little one is Erin Luke. Everybody calls him Lukey. And he's 9 years old, and he attends Iturria Elementary, plays football, plays basketball, and he's an absolute handful. He's just, that little one absolutely keeps us on our toes. But so over the last 20 years, I've been practicing. I went to work for a real estate law firm right out of law school. And then I was with that firm, and it was an incredible opportunity. I learned so much working at that firm from 2006 to 2010. In 2010, which was the year after my middle child, my son, was born, that's when I was looking for a little bit more flexibility and in working for myself, having my own practice. And that's when my law office was born in January of 2010. So I've had my own law office and my own law practice since January of 2010. So I've been on my own. This is year 20 of practice, and year 16 on my own, where I've run my own law firm. Um, Over the course of the 20 years, I have been able to do numerous things. I have served as a justice of the peace for a couple of years here in Cameron County. I have served as a magistrate judge from 2019 to 2023 for Cameron County. I've been an adjunct professor for TSC. That was in 2017, 2018, and 2019 on a contract basis. I've served as a city attorney. excuse me, for the town of Indian Lake on a contract basis. So I've done different things. I've been able to serve in many, many different roles over the course of practicing law from when I went on my own in 2010 to now.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting. A lot of people don't realize, especially kids today, how lucky they are with the university that they have
Hmm.
now. When I graduated from high school, I had no choice. I had to leave Brownsville because they
Hmm.
didn't offer what I wanted to get into. And I left Brownsville.
Hmm.
And honestly, I had no plans of coming back, to be
Oh,
honest with
wow.
you. I really didn't because I was in the high tech industry.
Hmm.
I wanted to get a job, with Microsoft, right? That was like the big thing. Well,
Hmm.
that didn't happen. And I ended up getting a job with not Microsoft, but IBM at the time, and worked for them for about 2 years, and came down to Brownsville for a weekend to see my parents. And back in those days, they still advertised jobs in the paper, believe it or not.
Hmm.
And I looked at a newspaper and I saw an ad for a systems engineering manager, and I sent in my resume as a joke. Well, the joke
Oh,
was on
wow.
me. The joke was on me
I was about to say
because
that joke was on you.
that joke was on me
Yeah.
because about a week after I submitted that resume, I ended up getting a call telling me, "We've got your plane ticket. Somebody's going to meet you at the airport, and we're going to take you in for an interview. Be prepared to be there the whole day." I said, "What?" You know? And so I did, and fate made it happen for me to come back. Got married down here, had a daughter, and I've been here ever since.
And the
And
rest is history. That's
and the rest is
amazing.
history. But
Yeah.
the thing is that, there are opportunities today, for our students that weren't there, when I was first graduating, even when you were graduating,
Yeah.
and it's just incredible. I mean, Brownsville is our home,
It
and
is.
it really feels different, at least for me, the second time around, you
Yeah.
know, and I don't think I would ever raise a child elsewhere. I've lived in the big city, and
Hmm.
I swore that I'd never raise a child in a big city, and I would never live somewhere where I'd have to travel an hour to work every day like I did in Houston.
Yeah. It is a beautiful, we live in a beautiful, beautiful place. I'll tell you a really quick story. Yesterday, we woke up and it was really cold outside, but my daughter's car had a flat tire. And so she said, Mom, can you give me a ride to the university? She had class in the morning. I said, sure, not a problem. So we get up and, we get on our way to the university. And, she was telling me exactly where her class was. And as I was driving through what is UTRGV and TSC, I mean, I can't even, it was so big and so beautiful. I actually took lots of pictures yesterday because the campus, even from when I was there, which was, 1998 to 2002, so that was over 20 years ago. The campus is amazing and it is
Right,
beautiful. And I saw so many students walk. It was 35 degrees outside. It was really
yeah,
cold yesterday morning. And there was so many students that were there and they were walking and they were bundled up. And as I was dropping her off, and it just so, she had a flat tire, so she needed a ride that day. Normally she'll drive, but it's almost like, life took me there to appreciate our university again. I drove around, I took some pictures, and when I went back about an hour and a half later to pick her up, I was telling her about how much, all the new buildings that were there, how the university's grown, and she was so happy and she was so excited. She's like, Mom, I love it, so it was really neat. Even I got to kind of relive stepping on the university grounds yesterday, just dropping off and picking up, and it was really nice. It was a
yeah,
quick, nice opportunity, a
yeah.
refresher.
My daughter also attends UTRGV, and when I go down to take her, sometimes I do have to.
Hmm.
It's just kind of fun watching the students and kind of recollecting when I was one of them.
Hmm.
Sometimes
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I wish I was their age again. You know,
To be
but
at that, to go back to those carefree days.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. So, kind of give us a idea of why you decided to run for the 107th District Court. Um, there's uh, several district courts, obviously, but I'll be honest with you, I'm not really sure what a district court is and what
Sure.
a judge for the district court does. I mean, I know that in the past, when we heard about the district court back in the old days, there
Mhm.
was always, Judge Daryl Hester
Yeah.
also
I never
referred to the.
practiced before Judge Daryl Hester, but I've heard.
I
And,
mean,
he's a
he
pretty
was
famous guy.
right. He was known, I think, as the hanging judge. I don't know how
I've
true
heard
that
that.
was, but that's my recollection of what a district judge was. So can you give us a little bit of a rundown of what a district court does and what
Absolutely.
a
So
district
a
judge
district
does?
court, we have 9 district courts here. Eight of them are here in Brownsville, at the main courthouse, and then we have one juvenile court, which is in San Benito. So the district courts, they can hear both civil and criminal, just like a county court can. It's really just the level. A county court can hear misdemeanor cases. A district court hears felonies, capital cases, the really big stuff, the severe stuff on a criminal aspect. On a civil aspect, they can hear civil suits. The cap is just different from the county court. Obviously, the county court, you really have selection as a practitioner. Do you want to file in county court? Do you want to file in district court? So they're very similar in a lot of ways. The district courts do have some exclusive jurisdiction. For example, like the biggest one that I could think of is family cases. You can't file a divorce in a county court, in Cameron County. Any divorce, any type of family law case, any child custody case, any child support case, a petition for a name change, anything that is family law related is exclusive to a district court. So there's similarities between a district court and a county court, but and there are some specific differences, like the misdemeanor versus the felony. And then there are the cases like the family law stuff that are exclusive to a district court and that only district judges can hear. Um, I know the question that you said, why did I decide to run for this? I don't know that there is ever a right time to say this is a time to do it. When I heard that Judge Ben Uresti, who is our judge in the 107th, and I think he's an incredible human being. I think he's a very fair judge, and to be honest, I'm sad to see him go. One of the things that we look for in a court as attorneys, when you walk in, I think the word consistency comes to mind. You want to walk in and you don't want to fear like, oh God, is this judge having a good day or a bad day? Or is this judge, pro, defendant, pro litigant? Is he pro defense? Is he, you don't want any of those things running through your head. Judge Udesti is probably one of the fairest judges we have on the bench. His demeanor and his temperament is always just consistent and fair, and he's so well tempered, and I've learned a lot from him as a judge. And when he decided to retire, I thought, okay, where am I in my career? I'm in year 20. 2026 for me is year 20 in my career. As I mentioned, I've served as a justice of the peace, and I more recently served as a magistrate judge from 2019 to 2023, out at Garcia. Serving on the judiciary it's an incredible experience. It's a unique experience where you get to take everything and just practice it from the other side of the coin. As attorneys, we're always, either we're advocates, we're defending, or we're litigating, or there's advocacy in everything that we do, no matter what side of the coin we're on when we're wearing that attorney hat. But as a judge, it's a different role. It truly is. And one of the words that I've used and thought of recently, a judge is like a gatekeeper, a gatekeeper of the rule of law and the person that's coming before that court. And the judge is that gatekeeper, that juncture of making sure that that rule of law is applied fairly to that person who is before them, whoever, no matter who that person is. So when I found out that Judge Udesti was retiring, and I was able to confirm that because I certainly didn't even want to inkling of announcing or that I wanted to run until I had spoken to him that he was going to retire. I thought, this is it. This is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to take my career and everything that I've learned, everything that I've done, all the advocacy work and everything that I believe in, because I'm a true believer in our justice system, and just flip the coin, say, okay, now I want to be on that other side. So really it was just, a matter of timing. The judge, the position became available. So I just felt like I was at a good point in my career where I can switch gears.
Yeah. Now, will you, what happens when somebody gets elected? Like, let's say you get elected to the judge. Do you still get to practice law still,
You,
or is it
we do not.
exclusively?
We do not. I would have to wind down my practice and any open cases that I have through the remainder of 2026.
Okay.
Because if I were successful, I would take the bench January 1st, 2027, and I would no longer be able to practice as an attorney.
Okay. Now, would you then become like an employee of the county or the state, or how does that
Yes,
work?
you're an employee of the county, and I will be very honest, I'm not fully in tune with the pay structure of the
Yeah.
district judge. I've never even asked. I don't even really know what a district judge makes. It's
Yeah.
never been important. It's never been relevant. But you are technically an employee of Cameron County. But from the little that I know, I believe the pay structure is a combination of county and state funding, things like that. I've never asked.
Okay. So who's actually your boss in a situation like that? Do you have a boss, or are you your own boss?
I would say that, we are our own boss, but the court is belongs to the county. So
Right.
to say I have a boss, I don't have a boss per se.
Okay.
My boss is the citizens. They're the ones that would elect me or
Right.
not, or vote you
Right.
out. So we don't have a boss per se. I believe the judge is the keeper of their court and their staff. But so there's nobody that they would directly um be held accountable to other than the public.
Now, with regards to your actual court, you would actually have a laundry list of people that would work for you. Um, you'd have what, clerks? You'd
That is
have,
correct. The court is always staffed. I believe right now the staff is somewhere in the number of 4 to 5. The courts vary, but there are court clerks. There are staff. There's a court administrator. There's a court coordinator. There is a bailiff of the court, and then there is a court clerk. So there's a
mhm.
staff of anywhere from 4 to 5 at any given time. Yes.
Now, I've been in a few court cases and I get pretty intrigued by the court reporter. Is that an employee of the court, or is it independent?
I believe the court reporters are assigned to the court. I believe they do interview with the judge, and the judge is part of that process of who their court reporter is. I think the court reporters are incredible because they sit and they hear cases day in and day out. I don't think they ever have a boring day in their life. But the court reporters are definitely a part of the court and the court staff of every specific court. Yes.
Yeah, I get kind of amazed, at how they're able to capture all that stuff.
Yeah.
I've tried to capture stuff in meetings before, and I kid you not, I can't catch all this stuff, but they obviously can. Now, of course, there's, you know, things like video depositions that happen
Mhm.
before the cases and stuff like that, show up at court. So maybe it's a little easier, but I've always actually, a friend of mine that I went to high school, his parents were both court reporters
Okay.
back then. So it's kind of
Yeah.
interesting. But what are some of the qualities that the voters out there should be looking when they're considering electing somebody to the district court? Um, First of all, do you have any opponent? I know that you're running as a Democrat, so I don't
Hmm.
know if you have any primary opponents. I'm not even sure if you have any general election opponents either. Sometimes people run unopposed. So, do you have any opponents at this point?
I do. I do. There are two gentlemen that are running, and all three of us are running as Democrats. So I have two Democratic opponents, and I have one Republican opponent as well.
Okay.
So whoever comes out successfully out of this primary, there will be a Republican contender in the general election in November as well. So this race
Okay.
is definitely is made for the long haul. It won't be over in the primaries. It's going to go all the way to the general.
It's kind of interesting because for a long time I always kind of questioned, well, why do judges, why do we have to have political elections, for judges and stuff like that? And, why can't they be appointed? But, if there's any evidence of why, one's better than the other, I mean, all you got to look is to the, I think at the appellate level and even the Supreme Court and kind of realize that maybe appointed may not be the thing to do. Maybe allowing people to elect their judges at the local level is a good idea because, depending on which way the pendulum swings can
Yep,
determine a
I
lot of things.
absolutely agree because you never know where that pendulum is. So
Right.
I think
You know,
allowing the voters to elect is, that's part of our process, and it's a democratic process, and
yeah.
they're 4-year terms, so you can get elected and be there for 4 years, and those 4 years pass by very quickly, and if the public is not satisfied with your performance and what you've done, they have that right to vote somebody new in. So
Now, how
yeah,
many
I think
times
the election process is thank God.
how many times can an actual person be elected judge? Is there a term limits or there's no term
There,
limits?
there is no term limits right now on the judgeships.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because even typically, I think, well, at the Supreme Court level, those are lifetime appointments, right? So,
Yeah.
most have decided to serve out their term until, they pass away. There's been,
Right?
I think, one or two. I think Sandra Day O'Connor retired early.
Hmm.
And was it Ruth Bader Ginsburg? Did she die in office or did she retire? I
I
can't
don't
remember.
recall if she retired. I believe she retired.
Yes, she
I believe
retired
she
because
retired.
her husband, I think, was
She
suffering
had a
from Alzheimer's.
long-standing tenure though on the
Right,
U.S. Supreme Court, but I believe she
right.
retired.
Yeah, so, those are appointments. And obviously, once again, depending which way the political pendulum swings,
Yeah.
determines a majority or minority on the court. So
Yeah.
I can now understand. I've never been an advocate for term limits of anything, to be honest with you, for many
Hmm.
reasons. A lot of people disagree with me about that, but
Hmm.
I think term limits, especially for a political candidate, for example, in Congress, they get elected. They spend the first 2 years trying to get familiar with how Washington works. And you hope that you end up on a good committee and not some committee that nobody knows about, right?
Yeah.
So term limits, so by the time their 2-year term is up, they're campaigning again, right?
Yeah.
So if
Two
you limit
two
your
years is
candidates,
quick. Yes,
yeah,
2 years
it
is
is quick.
quick. It
I
is.
mean,
I agree with you on that aspect. On the whole term limit issue, I think I'm like everybody else. You have mixed feelings about it. Our term
right,
limit's good. There's pros and cons to anything and everything that we would, could discuss. I think there's pros to term limits. There's definitely cons to term limits. If you have somebody in office that is serving the position well, you would hate to lose that person because of a term limit.
exactly.
So
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, how many times do you wish somebody could stay a little longer, right? And then how many times do you wish somebody wouldn't stay very longer, right?
that's absolutely right.
So, it's kind of one of those iffy things. But basically, what are the qualities that the voters out there should look into when looking at who their next district court judge is going to be?
I think the voters and I'm a voter, and I do this in every race that I vote in. I believe that the voters need to look beyond the candidate. And what do I mean by that? We all have a resume. We all have we went to school, this is where we work, we have the experience, we have all that. We've all got that. I believe the voters need to look beyond that. The voter needs to look at the person. Who are they? What have they done? Who have they served? In what other capacities have they worked in? I think as far as qualities and characteristics, when you're voting for any judge, for any position that's part of a judiciary, I would ask myself, what would I want as an individual if I was walking into that courtroom? How would I want that judge to treat me? What would I want that judge to know? I think most people would agree that not only do we want the judge to be well versed on the law, we of course want that. We definitely want any judicial candidate to be well versed and diverse, have a diverse background of experience that they've practiced in. But we also want a judge who has a humanitarian aspect about them, about having empathy. And, empathy only goes so far. I get that. I understand that. Not everything in the world deserves an empathetic hand. And I understand that. And that's why I think judges have difficult roles. It's a balance. It's a delicate balance of the law and empathy. And, where's the crossroad of those two? That's why I've always said, and I truly believe that people need to look beyond the resume. We all check the boxes. Anybody running for a judgeship has to check the box of, did you go to law school? Yes. Did you pass the bar? Yes. Have you been practicing for 5 years? Yes. We all meet that criteria. If not, we wouldn't be running. People need to look beyond that. What roles have we served? What community service aspects have we been involved in? Have we been involved in community service? For how long? Are we doing it now just because we're running for office, or has it been our life? Have we been involved in community service for the last 10 to 12 years? And look at the person. How is that judge going to treat my daughter or my son or my neighbor when they walk into that courtroom? Everybody walking into a courtroom needs to feel assured. They need to feel like, you know what? I have heard nothing but positive things, that this judge is going to be fair. This judge has humility. This judge is going to treat us with respect. And this judge is going to listen to us. And that is so important, because I can't even tell you, Daniel, how many times our clients, they just want to be heard. They need their day in court. That saying, their day in court, it's real. People who are dealing with legal issues, they need their day in court. And we need to be able to give that to them. So for everybody out there that's still undecided and on the fence, really look into the candidates. Look at everything. Look beyond anything and everything that's written on a push card or written on a political pamphlet. Really study your candidate and ask questions. Ask the candidate the hard questions. Ask why we're running, why we believe in certain things, because when we put ourselves out there to run for office, we need to be able to answer to the public how we feel about certain things and why we're running. So just in summary, I would say look beyond the candidate. You really just get a full picture and think about, what would I want walking into that court? How would I want that judge to treat me? And I really think that helps people, say, okay, this is what I want. This is what I would be looking for. And this is who I would vote for.
Now, what do you think some of the pressing issues are that are facing district courts today? I mean, from a layman's term like myself, when I've gone into the judicial side of the courthouse, it's a madhouse. I mean, it is. I mean, I'm amazed at how many people are in there on any given day. I mean, what do you think some of the most pressing issues are for a district court today?
There's a couple of things that come to mind. So pressing issues, and they're kind of different. The judicial courts, the district courts are, I mean, they have huge dockets, and getting through those dockets efficiently can be challenging. And I think our judiciary here in Cameron County, I really truly believe they do the very best that they can every single day. And sometimes that's not good enough for the public. And we get that. Us as attorneys, we're used to it. We're used to cases being reset or pushed back or come back this afternoon, or we get it. But for our client, they're missing that day in court. They feel like they're not getting the time and attention that their case needs, or their case is taking too long. So I think, judicial efficiency is something that's a struggle for the court, and it's hard because I think the judiciary is really doing the best that they can. I don't even
Right.
know how to fix that, other than we just keep trying to do better.
Yeah.
What else can we do but just try to be better and try to be more efficient? I think another issue that that affects the district courts, and really affects any court, is safety. Um, Daniel, we are living in some scary times. We don't even
Right.
have to talk about all of the issues that have been happening out in the world the last just couple of weeks. We are living in an incredibly scary time. And I think judicial safety is a concern. I think it's something that all the judges have got to be thinking about all the time when they're
Right.
sitting up on a bench and there's this just whole courtroom of people, and what is that judge feeling? I think their safety, I think that's a concern. Um, I think another issue that judges are facing is social media. As
Yeah.
crazy as that sounds, people behind keyboards are very powerful. They
Keyboard
think they're
warriors.
powerful, and they're typing and talking and commenting, and they're making comments and accusations about cases that they probably know a fraction about. And
Right.
that's hard, and so there's a lot of issues that affect the district courts, and really the courts in general. We could go on and on about issues, but I think there's safety concerns. I think there's social media concerns. Keyboard, people that just go nuts on keyboards, talking and criticizing and attacking judges and not knowing all the facts. And judicial efficiency. It's hard. I think our judges are doing the best that they can. And sometimes it's not good enough for the public. We
Right.
get that. I get that. But we just have to keep trying. We just have to keep trying, making the system better.
Now you talked about safety, and obviously, there are safety mechanisms within the courts now. You've got metal detectors and
Mhm.
stuff like that. But we've heard of some of the other cases where judges have been shot at their homes and stuff
At their
like
homes.
that. You see a lot of that happening. I mean, what can be done to kind of minimize that? Obviously, some of it is social media
Hmm.
uh, induced, so to speak.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't know whether publicly you guys have your addresses on file or something, but obviously, you've heard the stories of judges getting shot when they open the door and stuff like that. I mean, what can we do? I mean, obviously in social media, we've got to turn the volume down,
Right.
as people like myself that are in the public sphere, we've got to lower that temperature down. And that's for starters. But security wise, do you envision a day where judges may have to have their own security? I mean, for home. I mean,
I would
it's
never say no to that.
yeah,
I think judicial security is a huge issue. Um, at our courthouse right now, Sheriff Trevino he's done an amazing job. He's got an excellent team of people there at the front, at the gate, the gateway to the courthouse, and everybody gets screened in. And I feel I feel very comfortable with that. And I think the sheriff is handling that very, very well. As far as the courtroom, do I think we could do a little bit better? I do. Again, I
yeah,
think I'm of the mindset that there's always room for improvement. There's always
yeah,
room to make things just a little bit better. And I would, I could tell you what I would do. Whoever ultimately wound up being the bailiff of the 107 courtroom, I would offer a secondary screening. I would request a metal, even if it's a manual metal detector, to
right,
screen everybody walking into the courtroom. It's a secondary check. It would make me feel safer. I think everybody walking into the courtroom might feel a little safer. As far as our home, we have to be vigilant. We install the security. Most of us already have security. Some people might even have private gate access, which I think would be, incredible for every judge to have for safety reasons. I know that addresses can be protected, but people find out where we live.
Right.
I don't think it's not a, we live in a world where, people know where we are, people know where to find us.
Right.
We have to be vigilant. We just have to be careful.
Right. Now, one of the areas that you've talked about in the past has been the impartiality of the law.
Mhm.
Um, do you think that, you know, um, judges can be independent in the judiciary, free from any political influence? I mean, I know it's
It,
difficult.
it's difficult, but it's the only way to be, Daniel. We cannot take any sort of political affiliation to the bench. That would be like me sitting here as an individual saying, I'm running as a Democrat and I'm only going to be fair to Democrats. You can't do that.
Hmm.
Political affiliation has no room in a courtroom. The impartiality aspect is just across the board. It applies to everybody. I don't know. I couldn't say how a court could function without having absolute impartiality to political affiliation, to anything for that matter, to religious beliefs, to gender roles, to anything. There
Right.
just has to be absolute impartiality. Is it always achieved? I don't think so. But do we have to strive to make sure that that is always achieved? Absolutely. Because there just really should be nothing but impartiality in a courtroom across the board.
Now, you've mentioned in the past, where you'd like to focus specifically on rehabilitation focused sentencing. And honestly, I'm not really sure what that means. Could you give us a little bit of an idea of what that means? I mean, a lot of times, we hear those stories, right, about people not getting fair sentences. You got some guy who stole tons of fajitas, and he
Mhm.
got 50 years, and then you
Right.
have a sex offender, that takes advantage of a student and walks. I mean, what do you mean by rehabilitation, and how can we prevent, old ladies from being locked up for writing a hot check and getting 10 years versus, somebody that truly committed something horrifying? I mean, what do you mean by the
This is
rehab?
where it really comes down to how important it is that you elect a judge that is fair. In this process, you really have to, when you're casting your vote and you're saying this is the person I'm supporting for this position, it's because that person is placing a level of trust in us. They're placing a level of trust that we are going to do the right thing every single time, and that we're going to be fair, that we're not going to give 50 years to the issue on the fajitas. When you hear things like that and you compare it to some really extreme and violent crimes that are receiving probation or something just so much less severe, um this is where it really comes down to why it is so important to elect somebody that you trust, that
Yeah.
you say, you know what? I've seen her. I know her. She's going to do the right thing. I know she's going to be fair. If we're dealing with a DWI, she's going to be fair. If she's dealing with a civil litigation breach of contract, she's going to be fair. You have to trust that not only are they going to get a fair ruling, but that they would get a fair sentencing in criminal aspect. Um, how do we fix that? It's hard, Daniel, to say there's no magic wand to say, well, this is what we could do and that'll never happen again, because that's not true. It will happen again. But
Right.
this is where, when we are electing our judges and commissioners and all elected officials, we're placing a level of trust in that person to do the right thing. And
Right.
on the judiciary, people's lives are on the line, people's livelihoods are on the line. And that's why study your candidates, get to know them. Again, go beyond that resume, really get to know the person that you are casting your support for, because you're putting your trust in that person. You're putting your trust to say, you know what, she's going to be fair, or she's going to do the right thing. I trust her that she's going to do that. There's no magic wand. There's certainly no switch that we can turn off and say that'll never happen again, because it will. We don't have a perfect judiciary. We don't have a perfect judicial system. And I wouldn't claim in any way, shape, or form that we do. We have an evolving judicial system. And, think as we, laws change, people make decisions, people evolve, people grow, but you need to trust the person that you're putting into office. That's really the only way, because they're the ones, the judge is ultimately the one that is charged with responsibilities that impact lives. And if you
Right.
don't trust that judge to do that, then we're all in trouble.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's been so many situations, I think that the courts have done an excellent job of certain convictions. For example, this situation that happened with Miss Harrison back at the trailer park. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I knew Miss Harrison. I went to Cromac. She was a teacher there,
Oh,
and
wow.
her husband and her, her husband and her owned this trailer park in Morningside. And as
Mm-hmm.
the story goes, she got stabbed.
Yeah,
Uh,
I know the
all
story. I followed it.
yeah, all for a stash of money under the mattress, so to speak.
Yeah,
Hard
yeah.
to imagine that anybody would have that much money under a mattress. But the old Depression era generation, you could understand why they didn't
Yeah,
trust banks, right?
yeah.
But obviously, she got stabbed, killed, and as a result, the guy got convicted. But I don't even know if he finally got executed. It's been like tossed and turned around in appeals for so long that I don't
He's
even
been
know
in
if it happened
appeals forever. Yes, I don't
forever.
know. I can't say whether the execution has ultimately taken place, but I do believe that his appeals are exhausted at this
Yeah,
point. I
yeah,
know that he kept trying to appeal and appeal, but
yeah.
that conviction has held, and that is an excellent example of justice in that case.
Right,
With
right.
the right ruling.
With the right ruling. Yeah, yeah, definitely. So I'd like to give you an opportunity, and I've done that for all the candidates, to kind of give you an opportunity to speak directly to the voters and tell us how you are different from all of your opponents that you're facing, not only in the primary, but maybe down in the general election. Now, I'm not asking you to bash your opponents. That's not what,
No, and I
that's not,
wouldn't.
I'm not asking you to do that. I'm not going
No,
to
no,
stop
no,
you from
no.
doing it, but I
No,
would ask
no,
that you, I
absolutely
would
not.
ask that you wouldn't. So, but it's a good opportunity, to face the voters out there, to
Absolutely.
kind of, to kind
So,
of give them an idea of what makes you different from everybody else.
absolutely. So, as I mentioned earlier, I am running against two gentlemen right now. Or, and I don't even like to say running against. We're all running for the position. And so I have two male opponents right now, and there will be one male contender for the Republican. So the obvious difference, which I tell people I'm very proud about it, something my daughter and I talk about, I'm the only female in the race. So that's the obvious difference. But in reality, Daniel, I think when I think about all of us that are running for this position, I think we are all qualified. I think we all mean well. I think that we are all and we all want to serve a purpose. Now, what sets me apart from my opponents? I would say that probably the biggest difference is I believe that I have a very diverse background. I've been practicing again. This is year 20 for me, and it's been an incredible ride. I've been able to do lots and lots of things, from the justice of the peace court to the magistrate court, but I also serve in different capacities that my opponents do not serve in. Couple of examples of that is that I um I have a very heavy mediation practice. I'm a mediator. I'm a certified mediator, certified parent facilitator, and a certified arbitrator. What does that mean? That means that I went through some additional training to receive certifications to be able to do certain things. Mediation is a humongous tool in any court, but specifically the district courts. Most of the judges require it before even getting to the judge on a contested hearing. I mediate cases every single week. I have mediated hundreds of cases over the course of the last 10, 12 years. And to me, I take a lot of pride in that because I'm a very resolution oriented person. I believe that there is a resolution for everything. There is a way to solve every single problem. You just have to know how to navigate to get there. That has always been my mindset. That has always been my philosophy. I work as a parent facilitator. The courts appoint me on parent facilitation cases. What does that mean? I work with parents who are having some conflict in either a separation or a divorce or a modification, whatever the case may be. But we work towards resolving the conflict between the parents. That way they can be in a good co parenting situation. Courts
Mm.
have appointed me to do that as well. Um, Another very important role that I serve in and my opponents don't is that I am an amicus attorney. That means that I have been appointed by almost every single district court here to represent the interests of, not necessarily to represent the legal interests of the child, but as an informant for the court, because the amicus goes out and speaks to everybody that's involved in a case that involves a child, talks to mom, talks to dad, talks to the teacher, talks to the counselor, talks to the doctor, talks to anybody involved. And we bring that information back to the court, to assist the judge in making rulings on behalf of mom or dad or the child. In that role, I have one-on-one direct contact with the children. So I have a lot of experience working with children as well. So I believe that the roles that I have served in as a mediator, as a parent facilitator, as a guardian ad litem, as an amicus attorney has given me just a lot of unique opportunities to work with men, women, children, victims, all across the board. I don't just work in one specialty area of the law, and that's all I've done my entire legal career. As far as, the diversity, I practice a lot of family law. That is the biggest portion of what I do. But I also practice criminal defense. I also practice real estate law. I practice probate law, and I practice civil litigation and civil defense. So I've worked in a lot of areas of the law. And I think it's those experiences, all the work that I've done in the different areas of the law, and my experience as a mediator, as a dispute resolution oriented person. I believe it's those experiences collectively is what separates me from my opponents. They are wonderful individuals. I consider both of them friends. I know them well. I've worked with them, but we are different, and we have different attributes that we have to offer to the court. And I believe my biggest is not only 20 years of experience, but the diverse background. I've worked in a lot of different areas with a lot of different people, and my philosophy is not only always fairness and do the right thing every time, but there is a resolution to everything. You just really have to know how to navigate to that resolution in the most positive way.
Alrighty. So when is the actual start of early voting?
It's coming up. It's February 17th. It runs through the 27th, right through Charo days. So that's knocking on our door very soon. Early voting is coming up, and that runs for about 2 weeks. And then the actual election day is March 3rd.
Ah, okay. So for those of you out there, you've got 2 weeks to do early voting, and then you've
Mhm.
got the election in March. And
Yes,
as I've always said, you can't complain if you don't vote.
that's
And
right.
it doesn't matter whether it's a political office or even a judicial office. You know, if you don't agree with the way somebody rules, well, you've got an opportunity to vote somebody in that
That's right.
will administer justice fairly. So, Erin, well, that was pretty much it. I kept it at 45 minutes as promised.
Awesome.
You know, we definitely would love to have you back, win or
I
lose,
would love to be back. Thank you.
and we wish you the best of luck. And everyone, be sure to tune in tomorrow. I'm interviewing Mr. Jim Birschbach. He is running for GOP Cameron County Chair. And so I'll be interviewing him tomorrow. And then we'll be covering the highlights or the preview, better yet, of Super Bowl 60 between the New England Patriots and uh, the Seattle Seahawks. So be sure to tune in to that. And hopefully next month we'll be covering our Starship launch, Integrated Flight Test 12, coming up. So we've got some exciting podcasts, and the political interviews are not over. I've got a few more along the way. So be sure to tune in to that. Be sure also to visit our YouTube channel at Brownsville Tech Live. Be sure to become a subscriber. And if you're still like us old timers, still on Facebook, and you want to follow our pages, you can do so at Brownsville Tech Live and 956live.com. A lot of people don't like when I say old timers, but as
I was
I
like, I'm
tell them,
on Facebook, Daniel.
hey, the thing is, like I tell them, the kids aren't on Facebook; they're on Instagram. You know,
That's true. Or
right,
TikTok.
right. They don't want to be where the parents and the grandparents are at. God
That's
forbid.
for sure.
All righty, Erin. Well,
Thank you,
everyone,
Daniel. I appreciate it.
that was our interview tonight with Erin Garcia. Be sure to get out there and vote. Erin, have a great evening. And everyone, thank you for tuning in.
You
Bye
too,
bye,
Daniel.
everybody.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.